2 spectacular flights, 2 spectacular crash landings. Will the third time be the charm? Maybe, but not quite yet. On Wednesday, SpaceX was preparing for another high-altitude flight of Starship, a huge next-generation spacecraft that Elon Musk, the founder and chief executive of the private rocket company, dreams of one day sending to Mars. A fraction of a second before scheduled liftoff at 3:14 p.m. Eastern Time, when the engines had already ignited, computers on board the Starship called off the launch because of an apparent issue with one of the engines. After evaluating the rocket, SpaceX announced that it would make a second launch attempt on Wednesday. Conducting a second test required emptying propellant from the rocket and then refueling it. The company has an open window for a test flight that lasts until 7 p.m. Eastern Time, but is set to attempt their test around 6:15 p.m. Eastern Time. You can watch the test in the video player embedded below. Designated SN10, the latest prototype has been sitting at the test site since earlier in the year, and will aim for an altitude of just over 6 miles high, well below the orbital heights that SpaceX one day intends to achieve. That requires a powerful booster stage called Super Heavy that is still under development. The prototype appears outwardly similar to the versions that launched in February and December. Both of those crashed as they tried to land at the test site, located in Boca Chica, Texas, a community near Brownsville. "We've just got to work on that landing a little bit," said John Insprucker, a SpaceX engineer who hosted the webcast of the test in February. Each flight, even one that concludes in a crash, provides additional data for SpaceX engineers as they work toward a version of the spacecraft that can achieve Earth orbit. The most recent test, on February 2, occurred after a skirmish between SpaceX and the Federal Aviation Administration, which regulates rocket launches. The FAA said that the earlier December launch had occurred without the agency's approval. SpaceX had requested a waiver to conduct that flight even though it had not shown that a pressure wave that could be generated by an explosion during the test would not pose a danger to the public. Denied the request. SpaceX launched anyway. After an investigation, the FAA allowed SpaceX to go forward with the February launch. When that flight ended in another crash, the agency again asked for an investigation, which appears to have proceeded with less difficulty. The agency has granted approval for the test on Wednesday. Mr. Musk's company has become successful in the launch business, and it is now one of the world's most valuable privately held companies. Its Falcon 9 rockets have become a dominant workhorse for sending satellites to orbit. It routinely transports cargo to the International Space Station, and has lifted NASA astronauts there twice in 2020, with more trips planned this year.